So please, Senator Thune, pretty please, as I've said before, I'm shameless, I'll beg. I'll get down on my knees. John, please bring another reconciliation bill. We can do so much, but we can start with fixing welfare fraud. Please, John, please let us do the bill. I don't want to end on a negative note. I might hurt my back going down, Mr. President.
Tonight, Senator John Kennedy is taking aim at one of the most sensitive claims in Washington, the numbers politicians use to tell Americans how the economy is really doing. On paper, the story may sound manageable, but in real life, families are still struggling with groceries, rent, insurance, and bills that keep rising faster than paychecks. And Kennedy is asking a question a lot of people at home have probably asked themselves. If life feels harder, why do the official numbers sound better? In this hearing, he challenges the way poverty is measured, the way government definitions work, and whether the statistics Americans hear actually match what they live every day. Stay with us to the end, because the most revealing moment is not just what Kennedy says, it's how the officials respond when he starts pressing for specifics.
Mr. President, since we have a little time, I know we've got a vote coming up, and I'm certainly not going to delay that. I like my life too much. But I want to spend a few minutes talking about the Department of Commerce. I had this discussion the other day with our Secretary of Commerce, Mr. Howard Lutnick, for whom I have great respect. One of the agencies in the Department of Commerce is an agency called the Census Bureau. And I know that sounds like they count people, and they do, but they have a multitude of responsibilities. And one of their responsibilities is to define poverty level in America. Tell us who's poor. According to the Census Bureau, if you're single in America and you make $16,000 or less, you're poor. You're below the poverty level. If you're a family of two and you make $20,000 or less, you're at or below the poverty level. Family of three, $27,000. Family of four, $32,000. We take that seriously in America. Other countries will let you die in a ditch. We don't do that in America. It's one of the reasons we spend $1.4 trillion a year helping our neighbors who are poor. In our country, if you're hungry, we'll feed you. If you're homeless, we'll house you. If you're too poor to be sick, we'll pay for your doctor. That separates us from just about every other country in the world. I've been all over this world. I know the president has too. In other countries, they'll just let you die in the ditch. We don't do that in America. $1.4 trillion, that's how much we spend every year. That's taxpayer money. It didn't just fall from heaven. We thank heaven for it. It came out of people's pockets. And if you go talk to the Census Bureau, I pointed this out to Secretary Lutnick. If you go ask the Census Bureau, how many poor people do we have in America? They'll tell you 11%. 1 out of 10 Americans. It's been that way since 1974. We've been spending $1.4 trillion a year, and the poverty level hasn't budged. 11%, they'll tell you. And they'll shout it from the rooftops. And when they get a letter from another agency going, we need some help, some research, how many poor people we got in America today, they'll tell you 11%. 11%. They're lying. It's a bald faced lie. You know why? Because they don't count. They refuse to count all of the public benefits that the American people give to the poor. According to the Census Bureau, the only thing that counts is if you get cash from the federal government. We call that welfare. Temporary assistance for needy families. We have another program, I think, that pays cash. It's called WIC. But according to the Census Bureau, that's the way you define if somebody is in poverty. You look at how much money they make, and on top of that, we consider cash transfer payments from the federal government. And when you do that, 11% are poor. What planet and what solar system did these people parachute in from? You know what they don't count? I'll tell you what they don't count. They don't count earned income tax credits. If I make a low enough income, let's say I make $15,000 a year, I have to pay tax on that. I have to file a tax return. But when I do, I get an income tax credit, and it's refundable. That means the IRS sends me a check. So they don't count that, and the American people pay for that. But the Census Bureau says that doesn't count in determining poor. You know what else they don't count? They don't count food stamps. Huh? Real, strong drugs is the only possible explanation for that. For them to not even count food stamps. You know what else they don't count? Housing subsidies. Section 8 vouchers, getting to live in a place for free. You know what else they don't count? Utility bill subsidies. They don't count Medicaid. They don't count free school meals. You know why? Because if they counted it, you know how many Americans would be living in poverty? 1%. And that is a natural fact. I'm going to give you an example. Let's suppose you're a mom with 2 kids. And you're poor, you work, you make $11,000 a year. Okay? In determining whether that mom is poor, the Census Bureau counts her income and counts any payments she gets, as I said, from welfare. But that mom, with 2 children, making $11,000 a year, is going to get back from the federal government $4,100 in refundable earned income tax credits. Remember what I just talked about? The Census Bureau said, oh, doesn't matter, not real money. That mom is going to get back $3,400 in a check in child tax credits. That mom is going to receive $9,200 in food stamps. That mom is going to receive $9,500, or at least she'll be eligible to receive in housing subsidies. That mom is going to receive $900 in utility bill subsidies, $16,000 in Medicaid for her and her 2 children, and $31 a year for free school lunches at school for her 2 kids. And let's suppose on top of that, she gets $6,600 a year in welfare payments. And remember, the Census Bureau says all this stuff doesn't count. The only thing that counts is the lady works and makes $11,000 a year, and she gets $6,600 in welfare payments. So her income is only $17,600, and she's below the poverty line. Wrong. You don't have to be Euclid to be able to figure out that if you add up the TANF money and the $11,000 that she earns and the refundable child tax credit and the refundable earned income tax credit and the food stamps and the housing subsidies and the utility bill subsidies and the Medicaid and the free school lunches that I just talked about, you know what her income is? $64,100. Tax-free. But yet the Census Bureau says she's below the poverty level. Now look, I'm not here to begrudge this lady, this hypothetical person. I'm going to say it again. American people are the most generous people in the world. We help our neighbors. But the American people put up this money, and they ought to get credit. And when the Census Bureau which has been telling us since 1974, they've been lying to us. They have been lying to us. They learned to lie over there before they learned to talk. They need to redefine the poverty level in America and the definition of poverty. And it's the Census Bureau's job, and that's what I talked to the good secretary. And I talked to him in committee, and he said he'd work on it, and I thank him for that. And I'm going to chase him like he stole Christmas until he doesn't. I'm going to chase him like he stole Christmas and Thanksgiving. He can do it with a rule or regulation. I've introduced a bill. Again, the purpose of this is not to take any money away from anybody. The purpose of this is to tell the American people the truth. That they're the most generous people in the world, and they should be proud of that. And this mom, poor mom of two, she's not just getting around 17 grand a year. She's getting almost $65,000 a year tax-free. But the American people get no credit. And you know why? Because there's so many people in the bureaucracy, they want us to think everybody's poor. So they can go back and back and back to the taxpayer. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary Lutnick, with all the respect I can muster, please fix this. Please fix it. And I'm going to keep bringing it up until you do. I'll pass a bill if I can, but it's going to be kind of tough. The short way home here is to have the secretary, I don't mean disrespect, have the secretary do his job. Mr. President, I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Andy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. Mr. Secretary, the Census Bureau is under your jurisdiction, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And the Census Bureau is in charge of defining what it means to be poor or in poverty in America. Is that correct?
I think it does economic analysis for America.
But it also defines poverty level, does it not?
I don't know if it's the defining
Well, you need
Bureau.
to look, because it does.
Okay.
If you know, this isn't a quiz, if you know, what's the percentage of Americans who live at or below the poverty level?
I don't know the percentage.
Okay, it's around 11%. It's been constant. Now, when the Census Bureau defines poverty, they do it by income. You're aware of that. When the Census Bureau defines poverty using income, they only count income that the individual earns or cash income that the individual gets from the federal government. Is that correct?
Well, it includes all sources of their income. I mean, that is the purpose.
Yeah, their income and cash income from the federal government. Is that correct?
Oh, meaning does it include income that they receive from the federal government?
Yeah, cash.
I think so.
Yeah. So if a person makes $11,000 a year, that's considered toward poverty level. But if the person gets a cash payment, let's say in the form of SSI or TANF, that counts too. Is that right?
I'm not certain.
Yeah, it does. Okay. Are you aware that your agency doesn't count non-cash payments from the federal government defining poverty?
I am not.
Are you aware that your agency doesn't count refundable earned income tax credits, or food stamps, or housing subsidies, or utility bill subsidies, or Medicaid, or free school meals? They don't count that. They call it a non-cash payment, and it doesn't count. You aware of that?
It sounds to me that you and I are going to spend some time together and we're going to change it, but I did not know that, and it sounds like something that we should add.
And the purpose of my questioning is not to punish people who need help. The American people are the most generous people in the world. That's why we spend $1.4 trillion a year helping people that other countries would allow to die in a ditch. But your Census Bureau says it's 11% who live at or below the poverty level. That's a lie. It's 1%. If you count as any person with a brain above a single cell organism would, cash and non-cash payments, they're above the poverty level. And we ought to be honest with the American people and thank them for getting the poverty level down to 1% instead of giving them a curb stomping and calling them selfish. Let me give you a real life example here. Let's suppose you've got a mom and 2 kids. According to your Census Bureau, the poverty level for her is $27,000. She makes $11,000 a year, let's say. So she's below the poverty level. But she also qualifies for $3,400 in refundable tax credits based on her $11,000 salary, $9,200 in food stamps, that's for her and her 2 children, $9,500 in housing subsidies, $900 in utility bill subsidies, $16,000 in Medicaid, $3,100 a year in free school lunches, and $6,600 a year in TANF. That's $64,100 a year, tax-free. Is she living in poverty?
Doesn't sound like it.
No, but your Census Bureau counts her as being poor. I'm not saying take away her benefits. I'm saying give the American people a little credit. And I really think you need to change the definition to a definition that looks like somebody designed the damn thing on purpose. Final question, I'm going to hurry, Mr. Chairman. Why don't you just use satellite internet service? Why don't you just use Global Star or Starlink? You said the cost is $4,000 per person in Louisiana. For $600, you can buy a Starlink terminal. Why don't you just do that? And do it across America and save a bunch of money.
The states were responsible for determining the best outcome, and sometimes fiber in a dense location can be economically better. Sometimes satellite does not work best on geography.
It can't be cheaper. That's impossible. It can't be cheaper.
Math is, each of the states did their best. We worked it out with them, and we moved on.
I just don't understand. You can buy, I'm not saying do Musk. There are others that just throw it out for bid. But $600 for a terminal versus $4,000 for fiber optic? This is taxpayer money. I'm done. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chairman. I should have known it's you, Shelley. You're much nicer than Jerry. He would have cut me off.
Yeah, Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you for.
And I'm going to stay within my time because our chairman here is tough as a boot, and he's going to cut me off. Do you happen to know what our poverty rate is in America?
Yes, I mean, it's about 32,000 as a family of four, and it's this formula that you
What
consider.
percentage of Americans?
I don't know what percentage of Americans.
If you ask the Census Bureau, they tell you 11%. It's been 11 or 12% since God was a child. And I started looking at why that is. Are you aware that the Census Bureau, under its definition of poverty, only counts cash payments to the American people, not non-cash benefits? Were you aware of that?
I am aware of that.
And are you aware of the fact that if we count both cash benefits and non-cash benefits, for example, food stamps, which the Census Bureau says doesn't count. If we count non-cash benefits, all this money coming, of course, from the American people, that the poverty rate would be 1%. Don't you think we ought to give the American people credit for reducing poverty in our country? I'm proud of that. Are you aware, I got 32 seconds, these are the programs that the Census Bureau refuses to consider as part of the American people's gift to neighbors who are less fortunate than them. I'm going to read them quickly. SNAP payments don't count. WIC payments don't count. Emergency food assistance doesn't count. Food distribution program on Indian reservations, the school breakfast program, the National School Lunch Program, the Special Milk Program, the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. Medicaid doesn't count. CHIP doesn't count. Medicare doesn't count. Give me 10 seconds extra, Mr. Chairman. The Affordable Care Act subsidies don't count. Low-income housing assistance doesn't count. Weatherization doesn't count. Section 8 housing doesn't count. All these benefits that according to the Census Bureau says they don't count. If we counted them, the poverty rate would be 1%. And that's a rule set by the Census Bureau. Don't you think we ought to change that?
Senator, we definitely need to look at that. I don't think the American people are getting an accurate view of how well we are fighting poverty in this country, and I'm happy to work with you on that.
And a lot of people don't want the American people to know that, do they?
No, sir.
Boy, you were generous.
That's a long 10 seconds.
I know.
Senator Warner.
But it was well spent, wasn't it?
Yeah. Thank you,
But we
Mr.
love
Chairman.
listening to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually a little taken aback because I would have thought where my friend, the senator from Louisiana, was going, I thought you would have said, if it had been Joe Biden, he would have actually put an NPR station on Mars.
He just didn't think about it. If he had, I'm sorry.
All right.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I have 8 requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have the approval of the majority and minority leaders.
Duly noted.
Thank you, Mr. President. With me today is one of my colleagues from my Senate office, Mr. James Shea. He is one of my right-hand people and does great work, and I'm honored that he could join me today. Gosh, I don't know where to begin. I've been in the Senate for 8 years. In dog years, that's 56 years. And it feels like 56 years. I've learned a lot, met a lot of interesting people. Before I got here, everybody told me about the Washington bubble. And I said, how serious could they be? Well, it's true. There is a Washington bubble. This place is different. It's in its own way, sometimes disappointing, sometimes refreshing. It is deeply weird. For one thing, common sense is illegal in Washington. It's illegal. For another thing, I've discovered that this is a town of very frustrated ex-class presidents. And there's a Washington way of doing things. And when things aren't done that way, when somebody challenges the status quo, many, not all, but many of these frustrated ex-class presidents in Washington, on the Hill and otherwise, they get excited, not in a good way. They can't get their mind around doing anything other than the Washington way. Some of them, particularly in the media, they go almost catatonic, or the exact opposite. They foam at the mouth, and they really get upset. They can make a Valium nervous. It's like the world, we're not doing things the way we've always done them, and the world's going to spin off its axis. I want to try to put in perspective what many of my Democratic friends have been talking about today. They're very, very, very upset at President Trump. And they're very, very, very upset at Elon Musk. President Trump ran for president on a number of issues. One of the issues he ran on, he said it almost every day. He said, if you elect me president, I'm going to go through the entire budget and review all the spending, line by line. If I heard him say that once, I heard him say it 1,000 times. And that's what he's been doing. He went out and appointed, through an executive order, Elon Musk, who some people like him, some don't, but he's not a dummy. He's a very successful business person. He's got a top secret security clearance. President Trump issued an executive order, and he turned to Mr. Musk, and he said, Mr. Musk, I want you to do for me what I said I was going to do in the election. I want you to go through all the spending, line by line. Now, let me ask you something, Mr. President. How are you going to review the spending without reviewing the spending? How are you going to audit the spending by an agency without auditing the agency? That's what I mean when I say common sense is illegal in Washington, D.C. That's what Mr. Musk is doing. He's put together a crackerjack team, and they're going through everybody's spending line by line, item by item. And my Democratic colleagues are very, very, very upset. And they've been very eloquent. They've talked about the process, and President Trump's executive order supposedly violates the Constitution. And they've accused Mr. Musk of having conflicts of interest. And so I've heard people say he's sitting over there with a notepad, copying down everybody's Social Security number, and he's going to go use it to make money. I mean, people in this town, not just my Democratic colleagues, they're really upset. They've never said anybody question their spending. But that's what Mr. Musk is doing. But you know what? I've listened. This has been going on for a week. People have been screaming like they're part of a prison riot. Oh, my God, look at what Musk is doing. He's looking at the spending. And I've listened to people talk about the process and debate whether it's constitutional and discuss how many lawyers can dance on the head of a pin. But you know what? I haven't heard one single person who's upset with President Trump or Mr. Musk talk about what he's found. They don't want to talk about the spending porn, the waste of taxpayer money that he's found. I mean, that's the point of all this. I tell you who is interested. The American people. The people in America who get up every day and go to work and obey the law and pay their taxes and try to educate their kids and try to do the right thing by their kids and try to save a little money for retirement and have had to live through 20% inflation under President Biden. They understand what Musk is doing. They understand spending porn and wasting taxpayer money. Now, Mr. Musk started with the USAID. That handles a lot of foreign aid for America. American people are very generous. In our country, when you're homeless, we'll house you. When you're hungry, we'll feed you. In our country, when you're too poor to be sick, we'll pay for your doctor. And we send a lot of money overseas to help our world's neighbors. And the USAID is in charge, in large part, of that. But I'll tell you what Mr. Musk discovered. I find it fascinating. He discovered that the American taxpayers are giving money to Afghanistan. He found that we are giving money to Yemen. He found that we are giving money to Syria. I didn't know that. Some of our foreign aid is going to Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria. He found that the USAID has 10,000 people. 10,000 people, employees. And every year they give away $40 billion. Mr. Musk also found, and I'm not saying that all of this money is wasteful. I'm not. Some of this money, I'm sure, does some good. That's why Secretary Rubio is going to revamp the department and separate the good from the bad. But this is the kind of stuff Mr. Musk found. He found that the USAID gave money to support electric vehicles in Vietnam. Our money, taxpayer money. He found that USAID gave money to a transgender clinic in India. I didn't know that. I bet you the American people didn't know that. He found that the USAID gave $1.5 million to a Serbian LGBTQ group called Grupa Izladaji. I probably mispronounced that. My apologies. Anyway, they got $1.5 million to, quote, advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. What else did Mr. Musk found that my colleagues don't want to talk about? Well, he reviewed a study and then went and checked it. The study was done by the Middle East Forum. They found that USAID spent $164 million to support radical organizations around the world. We're not talking Cub Scout troops here. We're talking about radical organizations around the world. They gave $122 million of that to groups aligned with foreign terrorist organizations. Our taxpayer money. According to this report in Mr. Musk, the USAID has given millions of dollars to, quote, organizations in Gaza controlled by Hamas. Why aren't my colleagues talking about that? Recipients of the money they found have, quote, called for their lands to be cleansed from the impurity of Jews. That's what we're giving foreign aid to. What else? I'm not going to spend my whole time talking about this, but nobody else is talking about it. They're just talking about the process and Mr. Musk, and he's a mean guy, and he shouldn't be looking at our spending. Well, he is. And I kind of find what he's found out interesting. He found that we gave $2 million, USAID did, for sex changes in Guatemala. He found that we gave $20 million to produce a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. He found that we gave $4.5 million of taxpayer money to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. He found that we gave $10 million, USAID did, of meals to an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group called the Nusra Front. Mr. Musk found that we gave $7.9 million of taxpayer money to a project that would teach Sri Lankan journalists to avoid binary gendered language. The USAID took $8 million and gave it to a bunch of journalists in Sri Lanka to teach them how to avoid binary gendered language. I don't know what the hell binary gendered language is. I think I do. You think most taxpayers would support that? Why aren't we talking about that? The USAID gave $1.5 million to promote LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. They gave $1.5 million to rebuild the Cuban media ecosystem. They gave $1.5 million for, quote, art for inclusion of people with disabilities in Belarus. Another $3.9 million for LGBT causes in Macedonia. $8.3 million for equity and inclusion education in Nepal. I could go all night. And many of my colleagues are upset. They're really mad at Mr. Musk. Hell, I think we ought to give him a medal. All he's doing is what President Trump said he was going to do. President Trump said he's going to audit the spending. So Trump goes and hires Musk, again with a top secret security clearance. Nobody can quibble with his intelligence. You know, the guy's as smart as Einstein's cousin. He's a very successful businessman. Some say he's the richest guy in the world. And he's doing the auditing. And, man, he's finding a lot of stuff. I call it spending porn. Now, I'm not saying everything that USAID does is wasted. But I'm saying a lot of it is. A hell of a lot of it is. And we ought to be on the floor of this United States Senate thanking Mr. Musk. And we ought to be asking him to go through every agency and look at everybody's budget. Everybody's budget. That's what the American people want. They don't want to talk about process. They don't want to continue with the Washington way. They want to save some money. Now, let me tell you what's really going on here, too, Mr. President. For 4 years under President Biden, and for, 8 years under President Obama, and I respect both of them. I don't hate anybody. I don't. When I say my prayers at night, one of the things I ask God, God, don't let me hate, because it's hard in Washington. Don't let me hate. I have all the respect in the world for President Biden and President Obama. Tough job. But between them, they spent 12 years in Washington. And presidents set the tone. They control the questions that are asked. And here's the question that President Obama and President Biden asked For 8 years, I heard it for 12 years, I heard it every single day. Who needs to pay more in taxes? Is it you? Is it you? Who needs to pay more in taxes? We need more money. Who needs to pony up more? That was the issue. But that's not the issue today. We have a new president. You know what the issue is today? What the hell happened to all the money? What the hell happened to all the money? And that's what Mr. Musk is finding out. That's all this is about. And I'm just shocked that my colleagues have decided that this is a hill they're going to die on. How can you look the American people in the eye and support this kind of waste? Support this kind of spending porn? I mean, the election to me made at least one thing clear, that the American people are sick and tired of people in Washington denying reality. The last administration tried to convince us that we were living in a crime-free world where inflation was temporary and the border was secure. And the American people didn't buy it. You know why? Because it wasn't true. And the administration, our last administration, tried to argue that Bidenomics was making our lives better. But the American people knew differently. They understood Bidenomics to mean I get to spend more to live worse. And they voted. Now, I mean, the American people were poorer under the last administration, but they didn't become stupid. They could see that the government was creating a problem, not trying to fix it. And they noticed the national debt, too. Put up that first chart for me. You know what our national debt is, Mr. President? $36 trillion. Not million, not billion. $36 trillion. It takes my breath away. Highest it's ever been, over 100% of our gross domestic product. Our debt's growing faster than our economy. And we toss around these numbers, $1 trillion, $1 billion, $1 million, $1 squillion, like it's nothing. I want to try to put this in context. If I started counting right now, and I counted one numeral, if you will, per second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I kept counting all day and all night. I didn't sleep. I counted between bites of oatmeal at breakfast. I just counted continually. One numeral per second. It would take me 32 years to count to 1 billion. 32 years to count to 1 billion. It would be 2057. I'd be dead as Woodrow Wilson. I wouldn't live that long. And that's just $1 billion. Our debt's $36 trillion. You know how long it would take me to count to $1 trillion? 31,000 years, if I counted one numeral per second. About as old as Chuck Grassley. 31,000 years. It would take me 1 million years to count to 36 trillion. Those are the kind of numbers we're talking about. And the American people understand it. Since 2019, America's population has grown 2%. We're not having babies. 2%. And that's after massive immigration. You know how much our budget has grown? 55%. 55%. Yeah, we've had inflation. But we haven't had 55% worth of inflation. That's how we got to this $36 trillion in debt. Put up the next chart for me. Now, some of this money we had to spend during the pandemic, and it was a bipartisan effort during the pandemic. Republicans voted for it, and Democrats voted for it because we had no choice. I was there. I saw it from the inside. We came this close to losing the American economy. And you know who helped a lot, doesn't get enough credit? Jay Powell at the Federal Reserve. I watched it. The whole world wanted to go into a cave and retreat. Back in the Great Recession, I remember all the other countries in the world who looked to us. They may hate us, but they know we're the greatest country in all of human history. They looked to America. And you know what? Back in the Great Recession, all the other countries wanted they wanted treasuries, treasury notes, treasury bonds. Not this time. They were so scared. They didn't want treasuries. They wanted dollars, cash dollars. So Jay Powell, thank the Lord, he goes over to the Federal Reserve. He opens what's called a currency swap line, and he told every country, you want dollars? I'll trade your dollars for your currency. And everything calmed down. He doesn't get any credit for that. But it was a gutsy thing to do. But on top of that, to save the American economy, that wasn't helping the American economy. We had to keep the economy going. We spent a lot of money. But then COVID ended. And what we should have done was go back to pre-COVID spending. But we didn't do that. President Biden, after the shutdowns and the coronavirus, the pandemic was over, passed the American Rescue Plan. COVID was over. He spent $1.9 trillion. Never let a good crisis go to waste. I didn't vote for it. Then he came back and passed what he called an infrastructure bill. It was really just the Green New Deal. I know what's in that bill. That was another $1.2 trillion. And then he passed the Inflation Reduction Act. I didn't vote for it. But that was another $1.0 trillion. And then he passed the CHIPS Act. This is really special. He said, big tech, the semiconductor companies need our money. They need taxpayer money. They're not making enough money. And he gave them money. He didn't give hardware stores money. President Biden didn't give the healthcare industry money. He said, I want to help big tech. And boy, they sucked it up like a Hoover Deluxe. We spent $280 billion subsidizing big tech. And you add it all up, and that's almost $4.5 trillion. And that's how we got $36 trillion in debt. And that's why Donald Trump said, I'm going to look at every single line item of spending. And that's why he gave the job to Elon Musk. And that's why Musk is auditing these accounts. But nobody wants to talk about what he's finding. Nobody wants to talk about the spending porn, except the American people. They get it, Mr. President. They get it. And I hope Mr. Musk continues. My colleague and friend, we had a little discussion in banking today. Senator Warner makes a good point. He wants Mr. Musk to come over and talk to Congress about how he's doing this. I'm all for that. I am all for that. I would love to have him come over and walk us through what he's doing and how he's discovering all this spending porn. We need all the help we can get on reducing our spending because we can't continue at this pace. I just wanted to spend a few minutes putting all this in perspective, Mr. President. The world's not going to spin off its axis, folks. Every business that I know of goes through an audit. Now we're being audited, but we're being audited by not by the usual auditors, but we're being audited by a person appointed by the President of the United States. And I'm betting you when he's through, and he's going to go to all these agencies, He's starting on the Department of Education next. I think he'll end up finding that some of our money is being well spent. But he's also going to find that some of our money is being stolen and it's being wasted. And that's an insult to every taxpayer in this country. So I'm going to end like I began. We ought to be giving Mr. Musk a medal. We ought to be thanking him. Maybe nobody else wants to hear about the spending porn, but I can't wait to read the book. I hope he finds all of it and compiles it. I hope Marco Rubio, our new Secretary of State, takes USAID and shakes them by the shoulder and lifts up the good people there and fires the bad people, the people that wasted taxpayer money like this, giving money to terrorist organizations, giving money to organizations that support Hamas. Hope he gets rid of every single one of them. And I think if we listen to Mr. Musk, we can save a lot of money. And I hope he does come over and explain what he's doing. I want to talk about one other subject real quickly. I've talked about it before. I'm not going to repeat it. This is India. This is China, which wants to run the whole world. China's already trying to take over the shipping lanes in the South China Sea. This is the Chagos Islands, right down here. Years ago, the Chagos Islands were owned by France. France ceded the Chagos Islands to our friends in Great Britain, UK. And a number of years ago, the United Kingdom and America got together, and we built, mostly with American dollars, by the way, we built a military base in the Chagos Islands, on one particular island called Diego Garcia. And it's a really important military base. For one thing, it's very close to the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean in China, so we can watch them. For another thing, it's where it's one of the only bases where our nuclear submarines can dock. Hugely important. Well, the United Nations got mad at the United Kingdom. They said, Great Britain, you're bad people. You used to be colonialists. You acquired other countries, sometimes freely, sometimes by force. Every country I know of in the world of any strength has done that. Doesn't mean we ought to be proud of it, but it's part of our history. But the United Nations said, shame on you, UK. Shame on you. Bad, 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 bad. You have to give back the Chagos Islands and the military base there. And the UN doesn't have any jurisdiction over the United Kingdom. But the UN said, not only do you have to give it back, but you don't give it back to the people of the Chagos Islands. You give it back to another group of islands way down here called Mauritius. Mauritius used to own the Chagos Islands when France ceded them to Great Britain. They were run by Mauritius. But the people of the two island groups, archipelagos, the people don't have any affinity. Now, what's Mauritius say? Of course we'll take it. But they want to start charging the United States and the UK £9 billion for a 99-year lease. So we can lease our own military base. All because the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom feels guilty because somebody, some tofu-eating wokarati at the United Nations says they're bad people, bad colonialists. Well, and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, he's going along with it, but he says, I'm negotiating with Mauritius. And the people of the leader of Mauritius just issued a press release, said, yeah, he's negotiating. He's increased the price. And he's shortened the leash. Now, you know who's loving all of this? China. Because China has a close relationship with Mauritius. And you know what? It's going to get a lot closer. This is insane. This is cell deep stupid. This is bone deep down to the marrow stupid. Because the United Nations wants the United Kingdom to feel guilty, they want to give our military base and their military base to Mauritius. Now, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom can stop this. And Marco Rubio, our new Secretary of State, is against it. And I haven't talked to him directly, but I think President Trump is against it. The United Kingdom is our friend. I went to school there for a while. I love them. And I want to see the Prime Minister do well. But he needs to put down the bong. He needs to put down the bong. This makes absolutely no sense. And it's going to be a big part of his legacy if he gives away this island and our military base to, in effect, what will eventually be China. So I would say to the Prime Minister tonight, I don't mean any disrespect. I want to say this respectfully. I shouldn't have said the bong part. I take it back. Please, Mr. Prime Minister, don't do this. Don't do this. We'll stand with you in telling the United Nations who's upset with you to go fill out a hurt feelings report, because we're not doing it. We'll stand with you. Please say no. Don't give our military base away. It's going to really hurt the relationship between the United States of America and the United Kingdom. I know Donald Trump pretty well. I know Marco Rubio pretty well. They'll forgive, but they'll never, ever forget. Don't do it, Mr. Prime Minister. I've taken too much time. I'm sorry. I yield to my colleague from Virginia.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir. The Senator from Virginia.
Mr. President?
And that is really why this moment matters. This hearing was never just about one statistic, one chart, or one technical definition buried in a federal report. It was about trust. It was about whether Americans can still rely on the numbers coming out of Washington to describe the reality they see with their own eyes. Because when families are cutting back, when paychecks feel thinner, when housing, groceries, healthcare, and basic monthly bills keep getting harder to manage, people naturally start asking whether the official story and the real story are still the same thing. What Senator Kennedy did here was force that question into the open. He didn't just argue about policy. He challenged the language, the definitions, and the assumptions behind the numbers themselves. And that matters, because once the public stops trusting how a problem is measured, they also stop trusting how that problem is being solved. Pause. That is why hearings like this can resonate far beyond Washington. Viewers are not only watching a senator ask tough questions, they are watching a broader debate about whether economic pain is being fully counted, fully understood, and fully acknowledged. Now that you've seen this exchange, the bigger question shifts to you. Do you think the official poverty rate still reflects what ordinary Americans are living through right now? Or do you think the system has become too dependent on formulas and political messaging to describe everyday life honestly? That is where this conversation becomes bigger than one hearing room. It becomes a public debate about credibility, accountability, and whether government reporting still connects to kitchen table reality. If this video made you think differently about the numbers you hear in the news, then stay engaged. Go to the comments and share the one bill or expense that has changed your life the most over the last few years. Was it rent, food, insurance, utilities? Let people know what the charts often leave out. And if you want more fact-based breakdowns of Senator Kennedy's most important exchanges, especially the ones tied to the economy, government accountability, and what they mean for ordinary Americans, make sure you stay with the channel. Because the next big question is not just whether the numbers are right. It is what happens if more people start demanding answers.